do it again. Those familiar logos that come before and after your favorite movies and shows. Oh, those spectacular subconscious sensations. This is Return of the Station Identities. I want to speak to you very frankly about something very inane. Almost 2 years ago, I gave an educational video lecture on the empty space between commercials, the otherwise dead air where TV stations promote their brands. A 5-second stinger with a logo and call letters that reminds you, the viewer, that you are watching a channel you are already very aware you are watching. But why do this? It's like walking into a Burger King and having somebody jump out of the shadows and be like, "You walked into a Burger King," and then they disappear into a puff of smoke. Well, there is a practical purpose for station identities. Think of all the television and radio signals being transmitted all over the world. It gets a bit, oversaturated. To easily identify any given transmission, the FCC commands that every broadcasting station identify itself at the top of the hour. That way, we can be positive about whose signal is whose. Of course, these laws don't apply to cable TV since those channels run through a coaxial cable and not the airwaves. But remember the early days of cable when we didn't have shit on the screen to tell us the channel, program, time slot, running time, weather, astrological forecast, etc.? Something was needed to let the viewer know what they watched. A little bug in the corner would suffice, but really, what's the harm in telling somebody you walked into a Burger King? But more confusing than cable TV idents are premium channel idents. Things you pay a little extra for and know you're watching. Exhibit A, home box office, aka HBO, aka horrible body odor. I don't got no HBO. The idents here were presented before a feature film such as this beloved piece from the early years of HBO.
You're watching home box office.
Looks like somebody has lasers. Then the station turned into Tron and learned to pronounce abbreviations.
This is HBO.
HBO in the 80s loved its lasers. Or French fries, whatever those are. Speaking of laser French fries, here is a sleek and sexy opening from the late 80s. Journey through the neon projector while electric guitars and synthetic drums douse your face. But nothing could compare to this classic fusion of CGI, blue screen, and scale models. To get you pumped for the feature presentation, this opening sequence thrusts you into a theatrical motion ride. Or the opening credits of Beetlejuice. It was remade in the late 90s and, well, I'll admit, I was impressed with it at the time. Just stand 2 inches from the screen and pretend you're flying. Oh, and how much acid must I drop now to recapture those glory years? Speaking of glorified acid trips, Disney. Particularly the Disney Channel. Remember the Disney Channel of that day-glow decade? Remember how boring it was? When it first started, Disney was premium like HBO. You had to pay a little extra for fine programming like Candle Shoe. I'm the motherfucking obscure and even I don't remember Candle Shoe. But a lot of the early items, oh god, the fuck was that? Did Walt Disney's Frozen Head just float by? Well, later idents weren't so chilling. In fact, they're a bit charming, often involving Mickey's trademark gloved hands going about any number of activities like making pancakes, mixing paint, playing with trains, or playing God. No, don't do that, Mickey, you'll ruin Jeff Goldblum. And Gina Davis, for that matter. It's kind of odd how we only see Mickey's hands in these shots. I mean, what is he, reviewing junk on the internet? On second thought, it's a bit unnerving not to see his face. Perhaps this is like Bing John Malkovich, and we have entered the mouse's head and experienced his simple life. His very simple life. As well as his nightmares. That logo's still not as weird as the first one. But enough of that 90s crap. Let's talk about something even more 90s. If you want a representation of the time period, it don't get more periodic than this. In the early years, MTV was cutting edge, experimental, and highly creative. The station identities had to capture this level of raw originality, so various artists of various backgrounds were employed to create the things you see in front of you. In the late 80s, claymation seemed to dominate the playing field. In what other decade would you see a resurrection of fucking Gumby? But around the turn of the decade, a different style seemed to take over. A style that was very crude and grotesque. Some of these were cartoonish. Some of these were ghoulish. Some were, well, a lot were fucking weird. But all of them were fantastic in some way or other. 10 seconds of chaos like drive-by art. Blink, and you miss it. Although I have my theories that MTV wanted you to lose your appetite.
Get out of here! Wow, I don't know.
If you were eating, then you weren't watching enough MTV. One of my favorites is this thing that's going on in front of your eyes. Believe it! As well as this one. Kinda reminds me of something, but I don't know what. But the need for idents also led to some likable reoccurring shorts like Migraine Boy.
Why not come snuggle with me under the umbrella?
I'd rather catch pneumonia and die.
Well, you caught pneumonia and died, Migraine Boy. Are you happy?
Yes.
It's like a webtoon before webtoons. I think it's this point in history that our collective attention spans began to disintegrate into dust in the wind. They were fast and loud and highly imaginative. It's naive to say that mainstream culture doesn't have its bouts of creativity, but it was far more prevalent in the grunge era. After all, that was the period in history that brought us Pee-wee's Playhouse. But we'll get to Pee-wee's Playhouse in a future episode. For now, let's take a stroll through the gallery of sensational stingers.
Sit, Boo-Boo, sit. Good dog.
You know, little production logos that roll at the end of the credits. What was that? Do I have advertising in the middle of my videos or something? Let's start with the cutest logo bump of all. Oh, kitty, kitty, I want to pinch its face until it bursts like a roly-poly. Believe it or not, cats existed prior to the internet. MTM, named after Mary Tyler Moore, features the ginger kitty Mimsy. For each production, Mimsy would be decked out in a different costume inspired by the program. And for Bob Newhart, it's Bob Newhart.
Meow.
Aw, that's such cute stuff going on in their going-ons. But in the final weird episode of Saint Elsewhere, well, apparently everyone involved hated the world now because they killed Mimsy. Oh, but don't worry, Mimsy actually gets a happy ending. At the end of the film, A Little Sex, this pussycat gets himself a little cat vagina, and it's the best I got. Hey, guess who I am? It's really hard to do in real life. That's right, it's TV producer Stephen J. Cannell of Stephen J. Cannell Productions, though most of you kids might recognize him as Castle's poker buddy. Everything of this stinger screams of pretension, that rousing music, that typewriter, those rolled up sleeves, and the wall of fancy awards over there. Ooh, nice for showing that off. When I'm done writing something, I just toss it on the floor. But at least he gives more of a shit than John Charles Walters.
Right, Mr. Walters?
That stuck up son of a bitch, he can't even look at the camera, he's that ashamed of his life. That and he doesn't exist. James L. Brooks says he and his partners chose the name John Charles Walters because it sounded professional and Protestant. But if I was in charge of the company, I'd have called it Johnny John White McFreemason Company. Wait, no, it can't be Scottish. Von Freemason. Well, that was just unnecessary. Mark 7 Productions, brought to you by Baking Soda. Careful, don't bump the camera, you hulking hammerman. And in case you didn't notice, that's the sound that plays during the William Street logo. And Geek Vision. Ooh, high tops, this logo is styling. That or it's just wearing his logo ironically. Hey kids, ever wonder what a ColecoVision sounds like in a microwave? It's horrible, don't put your ColecoVision in a microwave. Wow, not pulling any of the stops here, using their full range of video effects. All 2 of them. Random house video. And that certainly is a random house. I mean, do those rooms even connect? And where could those windows possibly lead? I want to speak to the contractor about this random ass house. Now last time I told you about our favorite logo, Dick.
Deek.
Or Deke if you want to be accurate. But little did I know, there was a world of Dick. A whole wonderful world of Dick. No, Inspector Gadget, don't touch that dick. You don't know where it's been. And our final stop on this walking tour of sensational stingers is this. Klasky-Skippo. I think I'm pronouncing that right, but my Japanese is a little rusty. But earlier this year, I was shown a variation of this logo that's a bit... frightening. Belated trigger warning. It might seem strange to call something so short and mundane frightening, but if it exists, and if it's observed, then people are free to create opinions on such things. Just browse any TV forum. People have strong opinions on station idents, listing their most beloved or their most hated. Some people even re-edit classic idents to improve or parody them. After all, station identities are a thing we can all relate to, because we all share the experience. Speaking of re-editing classic idents, I fixed the Klasky-Super logo. It's even more off-putting now. Who knew a typewriter would work on the iPad? You've never tried it.